Okay, so it's time to go rescue Leo in this weird underground base that the Foot Ninja have, and there's another fucking elevator, just like the one in Tower Power. For anyone keeping track, this is the third fucking elevator in this beat-em-up. Now, I know beat-em-ups need to have elevators, and usually I'm fine with that. The elevator battle in Mad World, that's one of my favorites. Elevator battle in Streets of Rage, really great. This game already has 3 elevator fights, and I know for a fact this isn't the fucking last one. It's getting a little weird. Anyway, we're in this weird underground base specifically to rescue Leo. This underground base, as is par for the course for this video game, this underground base doesn't appear in the film at all. It's not there. Also, the reason they kidnap Leo is completely absent from this film. The reason they kidnap Leo in the film is incredibly important to the central plot. In the game, not so much. They just kidnap Leo to kidnap him, and for no reason at all. Which makes this video game exactly the kind of generic nonsense that the film tries very hard to not be, you know? Which is a little upsetting, but whatever. Aside from this opening elevator segment, this level actually has some nice scenery in it. Some really nice scenery, and it's one of the levels that stands out more to me. It's certainly no Tower Power, but it's still nice. It's a shame the context for the level doesn't make any sense, but what can you do about that?
Night, Irene. Well, dudes, I guess we totally gave him the shaft, didn't we? Ouch.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm getting a little fatigued of this game. This game's really good, and I don't regret what I've done so far with it. But Jesus Christ, oh hey, here's some of that beautiful scenery I was talking about. It actually looks really nice down here. I wish there was a lore-related reason for why this place looks so nice. Was this an ancient temple? Was this a church of some kind? What was the origin behind this place? The game never gets into that. It just looks really nice. I assume the concept artist just had a good time, and the environmental artists were like, yeah, whatever, we'll make that real. Because this underground cavern mixed with the torn-apart temple look, it really works, especially all the flowing water. It looks really good, and I love it. Anyway, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm getting really fatigued. I don't regret doing this Let's Play, but there's obviously a reason I didn't do it before, even though I think it's come out pretty high quality so far, and I've learned a lot about myself, and rediscovered my passion for TMNT, the film, and gotten like 4 people to watch it that never watched it before. That's really good. Around this point in the movie is where they actually just go straight to the end game. You know, they go straight to the conclusion of the film. And you might be thinking, well, okay, after this level, they'll go straight to the conclusion of the film. But no, for some reason, there's 2 more levels after this one instead of just 1. Even though 15 levels is a much more sensible number, there are 2 more levels after this one, and one of them has so much fucking combat in it. You know, there's a reason this Let's Play in particular has taken so long to upload and why the recording has been so far apart. It's because I don't want to say shit about this game that I'm going to regret. Because this is a good video game, as I've said before. This is a very good video game with the most satisfying 3D platforming I can remember. So I don't want to make it sound worse than it is, because I really like this game, and that's why I'm playing it. I wanted to share it. But if I record too much of it at once, I'm going to make it sound worse than it actually is. That's also why the videos for Friend or Foe were paced so far apart, so that way I wouldn't, you know, make the game sound like another piece of shit. That's also a good game, and it does a whole lot right toward making the beat-em-up genre more palatable for the average consumer. It looks very flashy, but the controls are very simple, and you never find yourself pushing a button and something happened that you didn't want to happen. You know, it's very good for casual people who want to get into beat-em-ups, flashy beat-em-ups at that. But playing or recording too much of that at once is a very, very bad idea. That game, like TMNT, also suffers from filler problems, but, you know, TMNT is also not 5 hours long. So at least TMNT showed a bit more restraint in that respect. You know, at this point in the game, you just start wishing they would not have combat anymore. Like, you know, you see how long this combat section is taking and how fucking dull it is. You just start to wish that maybe they would just stop having combat, that maybe it's time to put that away and not do it anymore. But they keep doing it, and there's even more. The next levels have like twice as much combat as this one. And while you're playing it, sure, you can just turn your brain off, because these combat sections are nothing. But when you're trying to record commentary for it, and you're known for making informative, intelligent commentary, you can't just turn your brain off while this is happening. I can't just say random shit. That's not why you're here. That combat section did give me time to think about how to make the narrative for this level in particular more passable, though. There are a lot of very easy excuses they could have used to make this... Wow, I forgot this room was so pretty. I guess it's over already, but wow, that was really pretty looking. Anyway, there were a lot of excuses they could have used to make this level's narrative more passable, but they just kind of don't. Sure, the level would still obviously be filler even if they did use those excuses, but it would at least make sense. It would at least make sense as opposed to the current narrative where there's just no explanation for why Leo was kidnapped at all. So I'm sure you're seeing why this level is one of the more memorable for me. We just went through a bunch of lava platforms with some collapsed trees, and now there's a coffin back there, and there's some swinging axes. There's a lot going on here that's really fucking weird, and it stands out a bunch from the normal city atmosphere. Again, I wish there was some explanation for all of this because I'd love to hear it. They mix a lot of different aesthetics together that work really well. Like, surprisingly well. The environmental design in this level is outstanding. It's another 2D platforming section, and as I already said, I really like these. Not only do they add variety, but they usually have some kind of optimal route you could take. It's actually very odd for the turtles not to remark on the scenery in this location, because they remark on almost every other piece of unusual scenery in the game. And this scenery is definitely unusual. There's a lot of shit mixed in here that you normally wouldn't see mixed together at all. Like, there's some sort of temple, but there's wooden contraptions and lava and traps, and obviously someone fucking lived down here and they were doing some kooky shit. And, you figure Don would at least be like, man, I wonder what happened down here. It looks like the Ancients from Pac-Man World 3 threw up all over this level, and not one of them says anything about it. Is that what their name is? The Ancients? The Ancient Ones? There's something like that. Give me a minute. Okay, we're gonna go with the Ancients. That game actually has some really, really interesting stuff in it. Pac-Man World 3, I mean, narratively. It's a shame that most of the world building is in supplementary material and not in the game itself, kind of like Final Fight. Like, there's a lot more to the game and its enemy types than you could actually get by just playing the game. And it's a shame, because it's some really interesting and important stuff. It's also a shame the gameplay isn't super thrilling, because even though I love Pac-Man World 3, there's just not enough to talk about. Even if I were to talk about all the lore that isn't actually mentioned in the game, there's just not enough to say. Maybe there's some supplementary lore that explains these catacombs in TMNT. Maybe if I buy the official strategy guide, it will explain where these came from. Like, I'll look in the official strategy guide and it'll say something like, oh, this underground temple was actually the home for the Foot Ninja for thousands of years, back when they were first starting to be ninjas, or whatever. And I'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool, sweet, that explains all the traps and the shit. Did you know there isn't actually a strategy guide for this game, by the way? At least not one that I could find. There's a strategy guide for the first Konami beat-em-up on the PS2, the second Konami beat-em-up on the PS2, and for TMNT Smash Up, that Smash Bros. Game on the Wii and such, but not for this one. If you're gonna make your game a Smash Brothers clone, then calling it Smash Up, I think, is the least you could do, honestly. That's just honest advertising. I've never played TMNT Smash Up, but I remember reading about it in an issue of Nintendo Power, and that's the only thing I remember about it. Reading interviews with game developers in magazines is actually one of the reasons I think I'm more sympathetic toward game developers and video games and what they try to do in general. Because most of the time people are genuinely trying to make really good shit, even when it comes out terribly, you know? And game development is a painfully stressful job, to the point that I don't understand how some people even work in the industry. Like, the only benefit to working as a game developer is that you actually like being a game developer. Because it's a really shitty job. I'm talking about working for bigger publishers, of course. I'm not talking about indie development, because that's an entirely different beast, and I have no idea what indie game development is like at all. Literally no clue. I know that the Unity engine has made developing games a lot easier and set the bar a lot lower, so people passionate about it can get in there easier, and I'm happy for that. And I think games like Yooka-Laylee showed people that you can use approachable engines to make great things. I mean, granted, Yooka-Laylee was incredibly polarizing, but I don't think anyone's debating the quality of the graphics or controls so much as they're debating the quality of the gameplay. Which I understand, you know, if you don't like wandering around aimlessly looking for collectibles, it's probably not your thing.
Alright. Thanks, guys. You were amazing.
Leo,
We'll talk about this later, Raph.
Uh-oh. Dude, who puts a self-destruct mechanism in a cave?
we can ponder these questions later. Right now...
Bummer, bro.
I just thought it was important to be silent for that section because I thought you'd think it was funny. You know, just to throw them right into that lava pit like that. Just thought you'd like that. Just thought you'd like to experience that in its full glory. Anyway, back to the dramatic exit scene.
Dude, get us out of here.
Jumping through these cracked and shattered fences is actually probably one of the more challenging aspects of the level because of the way it screws with your perception. Actually kind of easy to fall into the lava during this section.
We'll have to work together on this one.
There's a lot of places to use the bro throw toward the end of this level also. I mean, the bro throw is a pretty simplistic mechanic, but it's good to see it getting explored. The final stretch of the level, sadly, doesn't have any challenge in it to speak of. Right here, this final stretch.
Move it!
Precisely.
Done!
We have to get out of here or we'll be trapped.
No thanks to Mikey.
Dude, that was so not my fault. Actually, yeah, it totally was. Okay, maybe. But seriously, who puts a self-destruct in a cave?